Next, I will create a resource in API Gateway, and then I'll create get and post APIs, and then associate the Lambda, which we have previously created, get items and post items to these APIs. So for that, so let's go to the API Gateway. So in the Find Services, I can search for API Gateway and select that. This will redirect me to the API Gateway console. So in the API Gateway, I have different kind of API types from which I can choose one type. So these types are HTTP API, WebSocket API, REST API, and REST API private. I'll move forward with the REST API. I'll click on build. This is giving me a welcome note because I'm here for the first time in the API Gateway console in this specific region. I'll select OK. So there are two kind of protocols from which I can choose. One is a REST and the WebSocket. I'll choose the REST API protocol. Create new API, I have three options: new API, import from Swagger or Open API 3 or Example API. I'll select the new API. In the API name, I'll give a name, let's say shopping demo. In the description, I can put some description over here, but like I'm moving forward without giving any description there. In the endpoint type, there are three types: regional, edge optimized, and private. I'll choose the default one, the regional, and then I'll hit the create API. So right now shopping demo API is created. So in the resources, I want to create a resource. Let's give it a name, item resource, and then maybe I want to enable API Gateway course. So I'll check that and then create resource. This will create the item resource. So right now I can create methods in this item resource. So let's start with the get method. So select the get method and hit the tick box, and then from here the item gets set up. So I want to associate the get item lambda method to this get request. So let's search for the get item and then click save. And I also want to add the permission to invoke the lambda function from the API Gateway. I want to add that, so I'll select OK, and this will create the get API method. So let's test that. And for the get method, I'm not passing any query string parameter, and the header is also empty. So I'll just hit the test. So right now you can see like I'm getting a response of the my item which I'm returning from the lambda function. So let's move towards the second method. Let's hit the create method, and here I'll select the post one and click the tick mark, and from here I want to associate the other lambda method, that is the save item. I'll search that and then I'll save this. I also want to add the permission for this lambda method as well, and this will save the setup settings. So let's test this post method. In the header, not in the header but like in the request body, I want to send a payload. There is another item name and the price, so let's test that. So you can see in the body, like I'm sending this JSON object, and I'm getting a response from a save item function. So that is, the item was saved. So next, I wanna enable the sign request in the API gateway. So for that, let's go to APIs, select the shopping demo API, and then select the method, get method, and from here, let's select the method request. So in the settings, so the authorization, there are two kind of authorization. One is the none, and the other one is the AWS IAM. I want to select that AWS IAM authorization over here. So what it will do is, like, it will enable sign request in API gateway. So it will let API gateway know that whenever this get item API is called, then basically the API gateway wanna create a hash of that specific API, and then there is another hash that is part of this get API header, and if both hashes are same, then API gateway will accept that request, otherwise API gateway will reject that. So let's do this, and the same thing we want to do with the post method. For that, let's go to the method request and change the authorization from none to AWS IAM. So let's select that. We also want to add some more permission into the Lambda functions, so that API gateway can have full access to invoke the Lambda function in case of the API request. So for that, let's move to the AWS Lambda. So I'll select the Lambda, and from here let's select get item Lambda method, go to the permissions. From here, open this in a new tab, and then attach a policy. The policy is Amazon API Gateway invoke full access. Let's select that and attach that policy to the get item Lambda method. And let's do same thing with the other Lambda. So let's select the save item, go to the permission tab, open this role, and click on attach policies, and then also search for Amazon API Gateway invoke full access. Select that and attach that policy. So right now these policies are attached with both of the roles in both of the Lambda functions. After adding those policies in AWS Lambda functions, the next step is to deploy these APIs, and then we can test it using the Postman as well as Node.js code. So let's go to the API Gateway and then click on Shopping Demo API, and then from the actions, if I select the resource, and then from the actions select Deploy API, and I need to give the name of the deployment stage. Let's create a new stage. That is, stage name is the dev, state description, development, environment. Oops, I have a typo there. So then click on deploy. So this will basically deploy the API, and it will generate a invoke URL for that. And let's test the get item URL. Let's select that, go to a new tab, copy this URL there, and hit enter. So I'm getting the missing authentication token error message. So this is expected because I have set IAM authorization in API Gateway. So this API is expecting me to send access key and secret access key with this request. So for that, let's go to the Postman to test the sign requests.